How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Phil Talk Sports Podcast. Phil Nunziata, Nick Rice back with you today. Nick, it's been a while. We've had 3 hurricanes. You've had 3 new computers since we last talked. So we finally got our schedule situated again, and it's good to talk sports with you again, man. How's it going?
Good. I knew that you guys were having a crazy couple of weeks, but 3 hurricanes? Jeez.
Well,
I
we
didn't
had
know that.
two
I didn't know
affected us. There was one kind of out there, and then in that time, you've had to buy and return your computer 3 times. So we've both been dealing with challenges in our own way.
Oh, I created a whole hurricane over at Best Buy. I mean, there came a point where people remember who I was. But yeah, I'm just glad everything's all right over there in Florida. I know you get the like tornadoes that come around too. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a big old thing. So, but you guys were better prepared this time.
Very much so. No flooding this time. A lot of trees down, but I'll cut up trees and stuff after every hurricane as long as the water stays out of my house. So that's the deal I've made with Mother Nature, and hopefully she holds up her end of the bargain moving forward. But no, we're good. Obviously, I'm on the East Coast of Florida, the West Coast, and the Tampa Clearwater area got hit. Both hurricanes hit them as hard as you can imagine. So that's really where like the thoughts and prayers need to be out. The fact that we've all seen what Tropicana Field looks like, where the Rays are going to play next year. We're going to talk baseball here in a little bit. Who knows what their plan is? That's going to be an interesting story to follow. The fact that the Lightning are able to play their games right now that hockey's in full swing, is nothing short of a miracle, because there was photos of like 3 feet of water leading up to the stadium where the Lightning play and
Jeez.
it's just wild that Tampa is even semi-normal as of right now. So, good ups to them and everything. And it's wild. It's been like 2 weeks. It feels like it's been a month, and then it also feels like the hurricane hit yesterday. It's just we know how to bounce back from it, but every time it just takes a little more out of you. But that's living in Florida, I guess,
Absolutely, man. I would be remiss not to remind you just how sunny it is out here. Just not a cloud in the sky. I mean, I can't bask in any more sun if I tried. So, but anyways, I'm really glad everything's worked out for you guys, and shout out to Baker Mayfield and all them for coming back right off the hurricane with a very great performance to get people's minds off of it and back into where it should be.
It's funny, no matter where you live in this country, you're dealing with either hurricanes, earthquakes, or blizzards. So you just got to decide which natural disaster you're comfortable dealing with. I don't
That's
know
right.
that we made the right choice, but I also wouldn't want to live anywhere else. So I guess we did at the end of the day.
Love it.
We're going to talk plenty of football today. I'm hesitant to go too deep on this World Series. I thought we were going to come in here today. We're filming this on Halloween Eve, so everyone enjoy their Halloween by the time you hear this, hopefully. I thought we were on here talking about a Dodgers sweep. Obviously, the Yankees woke up. The fans woke up. We'll talk that story in a minute. But so the Yankees did sidestep the sweep by the Dodgers. So, we won't go super deep into the games, because by the time you guys hear this, Dodgers might win the next game and it's over. But it is important to note, and I'm not – first of all, Nick, I know I've asked this before. Are you a Dodger fan? I know you live kind of more in the Angels territory. I know you're only semi into baseball, so where do you stand on this? Are you waiting with bated breath for the Dodgers to win, or are you just casually watching?
So I've been wrestling with this for a long time. I mean, there's a reason why, I keep getting asked it. And I think where I've landed is that I'm just happy for one of the LA teams, Padres, Dodgers, or Angels, to make it. I feel a little closer to the Padres because I relate a little more with that fan base,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't really tag any one team. I'm one of the weird Southern California fans who actually have not picked one team,
Right.
unlike almost everybody else here.
Yeah, I was going to mention the Padres because obviously when the Chargers left, at least it's the only team that still claims San Diego. So they probably gained fans when the Chargers left, just being the true last pro team, in that area. And I know where you live is you're almost just as far from true San Diego as true LA. So you're in the perfect spot. But would you say in your area, it's mostly Dodger? If you had to cut up California in general, it's mostly Dodgers fans, especially now, but even before this, I would assume, right?
Yeah, Padres is just kind of San Diego and the surrounding area.
Yeah.
And then Dodgers pretty much fills the rest of Southern California. And then you'll get your sprinkle of Giants fans, actually.
Sure.
That's a bigger thing. I mean, Angels, I don't know where they are. So, and clearly there's a reason why there's none. It's unfortunate, but
I mean,
So,
people would buy their hats when they had Otani and Trout at the same time, so obviously people are gonna
mhm.
like. And then there's the other weird influx of A's fans that yet again we don't know where they are to this point either. They might be the Sacramento A's for a couple years, and then they might just stay there. Who knows? But
Right.
back to this, like I said, very close to being a sweep as of. I think the highlights of this series so far has been Freddie Freeman playing out of his absolute mind. We got another game tonight, but I think between last night and now, he hit another home run somehow.
He
Like
is the
between
only player in MLB history to hit a home run in his first 4 World Series games. Only
right,
one. And
and
we've had greatest legends of all time, and it's this guy.
yeah, somehow I think he found a way to hit one between games. I think he just went out to warm ups and he's like, let's count this one too. But Freddie Freeman, it is a lot of mixed. Like I'm a Phillies fan, everyone knows that. But living in Florida, yes, we got Marlins and Rays fans, but Florida is and probably always will be Braves country because before the Florida teams existed, you could watch every single Braves game on TNT every day. So a lot of Braves fans, probably more Braves fans than the other two Florida teams combined. So there's a lot of mixed feelings. Obviously, Freddie Freeman being like a Braves, legend, winning the title with them in 2020. His agent had that slip up, and he didn't match the offer. Something happened, and now he's on the Dodgers. So like, some Braves fans cheer for him. Some are still bent out of shape that he left. But yeah, just an all-time performance. I hope that's what this series is ultimately remembered for. If, of course, the Dodgers pull it off tonight, and it's not. The story could also be, I guess, a miraculous comeback from the Yankees. Such thing has happened. We just have a Netflix documentary out about when the Red Sox came back from down 3-0. So it's not impossible, of course. But the other story here is fan involvement. In game one, of course, was the fan interference on the home run call. That happened. And just as that was fading away, we had just an incredible interference yesterday. And this one involved like contact with a player, that player being Mookie Betts. And this only happens in New York, I think, because the Yankee, like we still think of Yankees as like embarrassment of riches. They have all the titles, but realistically, they haven't won a title in 15 years. So there's a whole generation of Yankee fans. Anybody younger than us might not even remember, or if they did, like when they won in '09, they beat my Phillies. But like some of the people in those stands might have only been like 6 or 7 or 8 years old when that happened. So this is a weird gap of Yankee fans that don't know success. So when they say like act like you've been there before, a lot of these people probably haven't, and I don't think that's an excuse for what went down. There's a version of this where like they kind of jokingly like, "Oh, give me that ball out of your glove," and Mookie smiles and he might even throw it to him because he caught it in foul territory. That might have even happened, but the way this went down, either holding his arm, wasn't the smallest guy either. He could have put too much weight. He could have like seriously injured Mookie Betts. Could have popped his shoulder out. Like
Yeah.
I might be exaggerating slightly, but like this really could have been awful. And those fans are banned for life. They'll have like a Barstool deal by tomorrow. I'm sure they're gonna be millionaires out of this. But like we have
Yeah.
not seen anything like that since the Steve Bartman era, and it's crazy the difference of like that guy had to go into like exile, whereas these guys are probably gonna like start a podcast tomorrow and just be known around Bronx forever. So just I hope we just remember this series in the future for the Freddie Freeman performance, but like the fans are going to come up every time too. I think at this point.
A sports equivalent of Haktua, I guess. All of a
Yeah,
sudden, it's something that was nothing. That's the thing, man. Like, it takes away from what is an incredible moment where an incredible game, really. Like, there's a reason why a lot of folks, to go along with it being such a long season,
yeah,
where folks really dial in during the playoffs and during October specifically because of the special moments. I mean, no matter how the series goes, I think what happened to close game one is probably the greatest moment of the season, of the whole
yeah,
season, where the Dodgers, I believe there was uh, I believe there was, like you said, there was a bit of fan interference that prevented a home run and allowed a double,
yeah,
which prevented the Yankees from winning it in the ninth inning. They take a 3-2 lead in the 10th, and then Freddie Freeman blasts away to win the game. Now, granted, they had the bases loaded, or nearly loaded, but the Dodgers kind of remind me that moment of what makes baseball so special, and it flashes me back to my first ever World Series that I watched with my dad back in 2011, Game 6, the Cardinals, David Freese down in the ninth inning, bottom of the ninth with 2 outs and 2 strikes. So you can't be any closer to defeat. And he sends a home run to force extra innings and then hit another home run to win that game. They
Wow.
wind up winning in 7. It just reminds me, like, baseball's so funny, man, because, like, even though it feels like the game is forever, all these little moments add up, and then, the whole thing can flip in just a second. So that's the special thing about baseball that you kind of can't replicate in any other sports. And that was Freddie Freeman in this series, and that's happened a few times in this series.
I remember the flip side of that for whatever reason, that 2011 series where like the Rangers, it's probably stings less now because they finally won a title last year. But like, imagine being one strike away from your franchise's first title, and then it gets ripped away from you by tying the game, ripped away in extras. But like, I always remember the heartbreak of the other side. But obviously, you can also bring it up as the triumph that the Cardinals had back then. But it's with that game one fan interference, like that ball would have been short of a home run, most likely, because he had to reach over the fence to get it. So that's probably a double one way or the other, but it was just confusing the way it went down. This other one, again, it was caught in foul territory. So the only reason we've seen fans interact with guys in a playful way, we've seen it happen with kids, even adults. Like Miguel Cabrera used to be really funny for doing this. He like catch it and like put his glove in like people's faces after he caught it, just being funny or whatever. So there's a version of this that's just like funny, like get out of here kind of thing. But like, there's nothing else you can do but ban those guys at this point. And like, I think it's important to know, people know me as like a Phillies fan. They know I'm from Florida. My entire family is from New York, the Long Island area specifically. Almost all are Yankee fans, a few are Mets fans, but so I could be biased and say like, oh no, it's just guys and that's how they're viewing it. It's like, we're just doing what we can to help our team win. This isn't arena football where you're allowed to like reach in the field of play and swat the ball out. Like, you got to know, especially to have seats that close. Like, for a Dodgers Yankees World Series, those tickets got to be astronomical in price.
These a couple thousand.
So to spend all that money just to act a fool, I'm just like, why? It's always funny how those sort of people, even in NBA games, like people that have no idea what's going on, end up like courtside. And people would like end other lives to sit where you're sitting, and you're just going to be like an idiot about it. So that's unfortunate. But like I said, as we record this, I'm hesitant to go into any major detail because the series might be over by the time you guys hear this recording, like I said. But in the meantime, the Freddie Freeman performance is just out of this world, and hopefully that is what it's remembered for. And maybe, we'll come back maybe after this series and give like a full picture of it. But for now, Dodgers lead 3-1, Yankees win. I guess if they win tonight, gets a little interesting. But I feel like if you're in the MLB, that's what you want, because the longer this series goes, the more money they're going to make. I don't like to be that cut and dry about it because eventually the better team's going to win. But I think my final point on this is, yes, the Dodgers went up 3-0, but almost every game has been close. And that first one, like we mentioned, ended on a walk-off grand slam, the first one in World Series history, which is crazy when you think about how long baseball has been played. So, that game ended in a walk-off. Let me run through it real quick. The score is 6-3, but again, it took a walk-off home run to do that. Game 2 was a 2-run win by the Dodgers after the Yankees started coming back. 2-run win again, and then the Yankees win. Honestly, the Yankees winning 11-4 have the biggest margin of victory in this series. So, it's not as over as it may seem. I think I'll leave it there. It might be over by the time we finish recording this, like I said. But we'll talk about the whole thing. We'll be able to look at it from its full picture, in next week or sometime. But just wanted to get some baseball out there because I'm glad it's getting like the shine, especially based on last year, what was the lowest watched World Series of all time. That's going to happen when it's the Rangers versus the Diamondbacks. No disrespect to those teams, and Texas, won the thing. But to go from those two small, it's kind of like March Madness, right? People like when the underdog wins a couple rounds, makes it like Sweet 16. But once you're in the Final Four, you don't want to see Oral Roberts, right? You want to see Kansas. You want to see Michigan State. So there is a line. And last year was a perfect example of like, you always want the underdogs. Here they are. Lowest viewed World Series in in the past.
You'd like one underdog, two in the I hear you. That's
like the Final Four. couple years ago, it was like FAU was a crazy one, and then San Diego State even. But people that pay attention know they've been building that program for a while. But like FAU's run was crazy. So like out of the Final Four, you get
Loyola
one.
Chicago, remember that one?
Yeah, oh yeah. See, like I said, if there's one, people are I think are okay with it. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna shift over to football. We haven't gotten to, like I said, I was without power for a week. I was without internet for a whole nother week. So I think it's impossible to really catch up on everything. So we're just gonna hit the highlights here. I had Nick construct a list earlier, and I appreciate him doing that. I think the number one storyline here in the NFL so far that we can jump right into is there's one undefeated team left in the NFL, and they're not even playing that great. So I think we're going to start right there with Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, 6-0, but really have not looked good at any point in the season outside of a quarter or two. Only beating the Raiders by I think 10 in their last game. Mahomes, you could say he's struggling, but again, he's 6-0. Like, are the Chiefs real? I would hate to compare this to like the Eagles where they were like 10-0 before things fell off the cliff. I don't think this team's going to necessarily fall off the cliff, but someone might catch them. They look as vulnerable as they've looked in this tenure. And I don't know if it's just a lack of receiving options between injuries and trouble with the law and stuff. But like, Nick, where do you see this team going? Do you think they're going to be able to right the ship while still winning? And obviously, if they lose a game or two, it's not a huge deal, especially with the way the standings is right now. But is this team truly not the way they've been the past few years, or are they still just figuring things out?
Yeah, I think they're a slightly better version of that year when the Steelers were undefeated. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Where, yeah, like quarterback wasn't playing well. Defense was, and the obviously well coached, but the defense was doing just enough. They were just figuring out a way to win all these close games, and um, I'd say in the end, it helped them kind of fight through things. But yeah, this like it people are treating it like a foregone conclusion, which is amazing because during the 2 years that people were like criticizing at every turn, like how could you lose to the Raiders on Christmas Day? That was before they won the last title, and when the Chiefs kind of didn't look great going into their first Super Bowl run, it was the same deal. And what's hilarious is that I think just because they're 6-0 and that record looks amazing, like people are now afraid to criticize this team, which is amazing because I feel like this is the time when you should criticize them the most, since there are so many little glaring things that I see. So I think quite a bit of the team, especially the offense, feels like a hungover from another long playoff run. I
Right.
feel weird saying Super Bowl winning hangover, but I feel like there is a level of complacency you get. And yeah, I think in the end, their weapons are going to hurt them. Some of their injuries are going to hurt them. And then, ironically, even on defense, it does feel like they can be had in the passing game. Even though they've won all these games, we saw Lamar Jackson play relatively well against them. Joe Burrow carved them up a good amount. Last week they played, I keep forgetting, I think it's Aiden O'Connell for the
Mm-hmm.
Raiders. And he played well. They won, the Chiefs did, but that secondary, down L'Jarius Sneed, who's now with the Titans, and they're just a little thin out there. I think they can be had passing the ball in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the defense, and it's a good word to use, has been thin for a while. They've just had Mahomes to cover up a lot of those holes, and now he's not quite like it. I get why people still are, but like he shouldn't be near the MVP discussion with the numbers that he has. But
He's
he's
literally
Patrick
number
Mahomes, so
two.
they're gonna keep him that way. His numbers look closer to Trevor Lawrence than they do a Josh Allen or someone
He
else.
has a lower passer rating than Trevor. Just throwing that
Yeah.
out there.
So, he's closer to Trevor than he is like a Josh Allen type or throw whoever else you want into that MVP conversation. But yeah, with them being they're 7-0 now actually, and to be 2 games up on their division, the Broncos somehow have 5 wins. Not quite sure how that happened, and we'll touch on the Chargers here later on. They're in the perfect spot, and it is just kind of a wait and see of like at some point this has to cost them this lock of predict. I mean, how many times are you going to win 19-16 or 21-18 or whatever it's going to be? And again, losing 1 or 2 games doesn't really change that. It's just like can you do this in the playoffs is really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I just think people look at the record and they're afraid to say how, what this team really looks like. I see the Ravens are a tougher team. The Lions are a more talented team, especially with Ben Johnson just unlocking all the skills of the Lions. And I just look at this Chiefs team and I'm not sold that they are as great as not only their record says. I think we can all agree. Maybe they're not quite 7-0 caliber, but yeah, I feel very confident that this team will not three-peat. And like before the year, I think we all could have agreed there's no way, a team can three-peat in today's era. But now that I'm looking at what I'm seeing there's a lot that can be had. But I just think people get scared because last year, the Chiefs, kind of like in this regular season, figured out a way to win late. So they think they're just going to do that again. But
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of great challenges out there. And believe it or not, I think if they do last through the AFC, they've got a team that they know can beat them potentially in Detroit in the Super Bowl. Team that beat them that began last year, very comfortable and confident, gets a chance to meet them again. You've also got, Green Bay is looking good. There's a lot of teams that, to me, I think, look better than the Chiefs for sure.
Yeah, plenty of teams look better than Chiefs, but they all have like but like the Ravens look great, but yeah, they just lost to the Browns and they started slow. Buffalo, it's hard to believe in just because we've seen them lose in every conceivable way possible.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit, I think, is the most comfortable. You feel like there's less of a but with them. Their only but is like maybe they're inexperienced, but a lot of that team, I mean, you got Jared Goff, who's made a Super Bowl. They went on a good run last year. That experience is coming in the past, 2.5 seasons or whatever. So they're like, if I had to put money on an NFC team right now, I think it's Detroit. I think the sexy pick right now would be Washington, just because every 4 or 5 years and I'm not saying to like win it all, but to like make a conference title game even, just because every 4 or 5 years, whether it's a combination of the Eagles and the Cowboys doing what they're doing and Washington kind of sort of figuring out, they win the division every like 4 or 5 years. It's like a presidential election for them down there, right? This might be the year, especially after that Hail Mary that was just incredible to see this past weekend. But I wouldn't feel comfortable putting money on them or anything right now. I think if I had to put money on an NFC team, it's Detroit. And then with the AFC, like, again, Buffalo is 6-2. They're looking good. They have a 4-game lead on the division. Whether
that's crazy.
It would take a monumental failure to not waltz in backwards with the AFC East. So like they have that going for them, right? Pittsburgh's is 6-2 as well, but the Ravens are right there. I think people liked Houston more at the start of the year than they do now. I think they're still very good, and they also have a very winnable division. But it's pretty wide open. But in the AFC, I don't know. Again, I guess even though they don't have the record to show it, I think I'd feel the most comfortable going with Baltimore as of right now. Like you said, they even though they've lost a few games, they should have won. Like what you see, I'm like, yeah, this can translate to the playoffs.
It feels to me like the Ravens are a lot like I can't get out of my head the year the Colts won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, where they got rid of some defensive talent and the defense didn't look as good as it used to, but because they're well coached, they're a tough team, they've lost a lot in the playoffs, they have a quarterback that just you feel too good to not at some point get over the hump. I think this is the year they do it, especially when they have a Derrick Henry. So I'd feel pretty good about them. And then I forgot about this team, and you brought them up, but Pittsburgh. They just figure out a way to win. They're a great, well-coached team. And I've had my gripes about Russell Wilson for a while. I feel like him being in the automatic first ballot Hall of Fame talk, when just my own personal gripe, the fact that Antonio Gates is not a first ballot is insane to me.
Yeah.
Argument for as good as any tight end there ever has been. So that's wild to me. But Russell Wilson, I feel with this year being a vindication year, probably should get in as a Hall of Fame football player. He's really proven it this year. And I think, if he can play like this, the Steelers are a team to look after too, to go along with the Ravens and the Chiefs. Maybe that's a 3-horse race in the AFC.
I mean, we talked about this in our group chat the other day. As much as I don't like the Steelers, like Mike Tomlin his title shouldn't even be head coach anymore. It should just be like miracle worker. Like the way he managed and like
and babysitter, man.
yeah, man, all the ego stuff that Russ had going on in Denver, like is non-existent. He brought in 2 quarterbacks that expected to start. Both have played. They're winning, right? Both quarterbacks are yucking it up on the sideline with each other. This dude, I don't know that anyone's ran an NFL team better for longer than Mike Tomlin. Like I really can't think of another one. And you mentioned like, yeah, there was a weird version of this where they just like, because they haven't played particularly great either, but they have found ways to win. So if they catch fire with the guy like Mike Tomlin, could be good to go. I'm watching that Giants game, this past Monday. I'm watching it for fantasy implications. And Russ throws a touchdown. I'm like, oh, that's it for me. I'm going to lose this game by 1 point or something. They get the ball back and he fumbles. And if it's not the Giants you're playing, they may go down the field and score. But the Giants have a terrible offense, minus some Malik Neighbors, and it doesn't matter too much. But like, you can't let teams back in the game like they did in that game. You got lucky because you're playing the Giants. But like, the Steelers are in a weird situation, and we've had teams like this in the past. I call it Green Bay Packers disease, and it was the way it was with Aaron Rodgers. I could see them winning the Super Bowl, and I could see them losing the wild card round, and neither would surprise me. That's kind of where we're at with them.
Yeah, and I told you going after that Monday night game, the Russell Wilson is the type of guy now where he gives both teams a chance to win. It's just incredible. He makes all these great plays. He's one of the great deep ball throwers of all time. But nowadays, he just has a tendency to make these like, what are you doing plays? And shout out to Russ for helping you win last week.
Yeah, he gave me a loss and then he took it back. So that was very nice of him. Before we go off the Steelers, I didn't even plan to talk about the Steelers that much.
Me neither.
But can we talk about the Pickens touchdown that wasn't a touchdown?
Yeah.
That is the most incredible. Like, dude, just let gravity do its thing and you score. And like, you agree with me though that was the correct call. That was not a touchdown, right?
Yeah, that's the way of the rules. It's just, should that still be a rule?
I think it's hard to not like. It says 2 feet, and I guess it's just implied that it means. Actually, I don't think 2 feet's the word. I think it's both feet is the wording, which is how that stands. Because otherwise, that's a college catch where you got your foot down one time and you're in. I cannot like when you watch it live, like that's as clear a touchdown as you've ever seen, and they're all just standing around and you don't know why. And then they show the replay, and I've never seen anything like that before. I don't think I'll ever see anything like that since. The most like Des Bryant used to do stuff like that all the time, where he like went out of his way to like he could drag his toe. He's talented enough to do it, and he just doesn't. He probably has like 6 to 8 more touchdowns on his career outside of the ones that he tries to catch, on the sideline or out the back of the end zone. But
one more playoff win.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I've just never seen anything like that, and I don't know that I ever will again. It was wild. And people are saying like, no, that should be a touchdown because he got a foot down twice. Like, well, that's not the rule. And this isn't
not
like
the rule, but I think I agree with them that should at some point be the rule. I feel. I know that sounds crazy, but in the end, you're supposed to have control and get 2 feet in. I mean, how many times is that going to happen? Like maybe one every 10 years? I don't know.
And now that it's happened, in case anyone was ever wondering, that's how people are going to remember now that it doesn't work that way. They made the right call, and I think we both agree on that. It's just like, is it in the spirit of the rule? I think you have to go out of your way to not get your second foot down there, and he basically did that, which is just the weirdest. I don't know.
We've seen 2 crazy catch rules this year. I mean, I think first name's Deshaun, but last name is Polk for the Patriots, who got his heel down. He got 1 foot down and then his right heel down, but the ref said incomplete on a touchdown because he didn't get his whole foot down.
Or like the front of the foot hit out of bounds before the back of the foot, which again, that makes sense, but it's like, how often is that going to happen? It's just the weirdest thing.
To me, in the end, if you get 2 feet down, the only argument people had to my thought of George Pickens is that, well, then you can just, when you're dragging your foot on the ground, technically it goes up and down. You know what I mean? It's skipping. But I think we all understand, like, if you get a whole foot down twice, I think that's, but it's
I get
how
the
often
argument.
Is this going to happen? So that's why.
Yeah, I get the argument for sure, but I'm in the boat that like, if you're in that scenario, it's almost easier to put your second foot down than it is to pick the 1 foot up and put it back down.
But it was a weird thing where he caught the ball drifting not out of bounds, drifting sideways, and then
Yeah.
he got pushed right at the perfect moment
Mm.
where he kind of felt like he was falling back and
Yeah.
his left foot step. But you got to have the wherewithal to say, "I'm going to put my foot down,"
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I will be shocked if we see anything even close to that ever again. It's similar to in the
and of
spirit of the
course, you just
rule.
jinxed it right there. But
Yeah, probably. Yeah, well, it'll happen. It'll happen this week. Now watch.
that's
We'll
right.
see. But it's like the whole fumble at the back of the end zone is a touchback. Like people don't like
That
it.
rule's got to get changed. I
See, I
feel.
don't know how you change it though, because look at it this way. I had it explained to me this way, and it'll keep my opinion this way. No other play in football ends in the end zone that isn't a touchback. So it has to be a
Mhm.
touchback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but all other plays, there is a understood rule that the ball.
So then
I
what
mean,
would
I
you
hear
change it
you.
to?
I guess I'm even thinking about kicking the ball out of the end zone. Technically, the other team didn't grab the possession either.
Yeah.
But in that case, I guess my only retort would be if you're punting the ball and instead of punting the ball towards the opponent, you punt it out of your own end zone. It's a safety, and you punt the ball and a safety punt back to them, right? But if you
Mhm.
fumble the ball out of the end zone, you don't punt it to them on a safety punt. You just give them the ball at the 20. So,
So the only
we
example,
do figure out a way to reverse,
yeah,
have different rules for different things.
the only thing I've thought of that, like, all right, if you have to change it, it's a loss of down and the ball is all the way out to, I would go as far back as like the 25. Because like
Yeah, I was
if you're not
thinking the
gonna lose,
20.
yeah,
Lost it down back to the 20.
if you're not gonna lose possession, and like people are like, oh, why does that need to happen? Why can't they get the ball where fumble? Like, because there needs to be a penalty for you fumbling the ball.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can just fumble. Like if you're going down and you can just kind of like fumble it into the end zone in it, like corner pocket it so it
Holy
goes
roller,
out of me.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
holy roller, right? So like you got to prevent that. People hate it, but like I defend it more than I ever plan to because like I don't know what else to do with it, and the only thing I can think of is loss of down and out to the 25. So we'll see. I
I
don't know
like
that they'll
that.
ever
I
change it
like
because it happens once or twice a year. People complain, and then it goes nowhere. Like honestly, I don't know
Yeah.
that it'll ever change, and I'm kind of okay because like if it happens enough now that when it does, people know like, oh shit, that means loss of possession. Like it was happening so infrequently before that when it did, people were just looking around confused. People know what it is now.
What's funny, before I come with a steady opinion on this, I kind of want to see how the college football playoff works. And people may be like, "What? How does that relate?" We
Mm,
complained for years every time, right around the playoff time, about, "Hey, there's not enough teams in." Now we have a ridiculous amount of teams in. I want to
right.
see how many people complain now, and then that will determine whether or not these rules matter. Because if I hear a lot of complaining, then I don't know if I want to listen to much complaining anymore, anyways.
Sure.
So I
I mean,
want to
I
hear how
Mike
people
Plains,
react to this playoff
when they went with 12, I thought immediately that was too much. I would have been fine with 6, right? Like
immediately.
your
Six
top
or eight.
4, your top 4 conference winners, your best group of 5 champion and one wild card. And then if people thought that was too exclusive, I'd go with 8, but I thought 6 or 8 made way more sense than 12 in my opinion.
It, don't you find this funny? All these years where Bama was like sneaking into the BCS, and then all these years where Bama was sneaking into number 4, and guess where Bama's sitting around right now that
12.
they're going to 12, right
Yeah.
around 12. Isn't that hilarious?
Funny how that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um I've might have some college football stuff here at the end, but we'll talk about, we talked about the Lions a little bit. Jared Goff, talk about it. Has anyone, let me throw this at you. Has anyone ever had this good of a second team run as Jared Goff is with the Lions? I mean, you got Joe Montana with the Chiefs. You got Alex
Mhm.
Smith with the Niners, or I'm sorry, with the Chiefs, from the Niners. I don't know many, maybe a Randall Cunningham with the Vikings, right? Like that was
Yeah.
a crazy run, but he's up there. He's got to be top 3, top 5 for like second chance. And this isn't just like a random guy that caught on his eighth team. This is a guy that was a first round pick, went to a Super Bowl with team 1, was a couple plays away from making a Super Bowl with team Kurt Warner, right? I guess with he went to it right
Cardinals, but he
with
was
the
better
Cardinals.
with
Yeah.
the Rams.
He was, of course, but like just the fact that you could be that successful with a second team is wild.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are examples off the top of my head. I go Cunningham's teammate Randy Moss. He was good with the Vikings, but he
Sure,
was
but I'm talking
amazing with the
quarterbacks.
Patriots. And I guess quarterback, I'd go
Yeah.
Baker. He
Baker's
was
doing good
fine
too.
with
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Hmm.
So there are examples, but it's few and far in between. But what's even fewer and farther in between is a double win on a trade. Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. Both teams are happy with that trade. Maybe now Detroit actually might be a little more happy considering the loss
If
they
they
got.
manage to win one, they will be happier because the Rams could have maybe won if they with somebody else with the team that they constructed that year. But the
Mhm.
Browns, or I'm sorry, the Lions needed someone like Jared Goff that was like had the talent but didn't have the personality. Like he weirdly fits as a guy that was from played at Cal, right? Like he fits the Michigan Detroit better than California
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
especially the Fighting Dan Campbells.
Mhm.
They
Yeah,
there needs to
absolutely.
be somebody behind the scenes of a Dan Campbell, shout show
Yeah.
or kneecap biting show, whatever it is up there.
But you're right.
So
I can't think of another like it. I guess even if if 4 years from now, like the Lions didn't win, but they made the playoffs, made a bunch of NFC championships, like it would sting that they never won it. But they're like, yeah, trading Stafford, like we wouldn't have done all that with Stafford at the point because like Stafford had less time to do because he was older. He won the ring right away, and the Rams like he still shows his magic. He pulled out a big win last week. So I think you're right. I think even at this point, the Lions are like, yeah, we wouldn't be where we are if we didn't make the trade. So we're better than we would have been. Yeah, our other guy did win, and maybe we do or we don't. But yeah, it's one of the more even trades. And that's the thing. Like, and it's funny coming from
even
me.
even trade, but it was good for like it was great for both that it happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it wouldn't have been as good if they stayed there.
Yeah, absolutely. They both benefit. Both teams benefited. Both players benefited. And it's funny coming from me being like I'm a fan of a team that Howie Roseman runs, and he rips people off with every trade. But it is
Yeah.
possible to be like, hey man, I got an idea, and fantasy football players think about this too. It is possible to make a trade that doesn't rip the other guy off. You can like, hey, you need this, I need this, boom, let's do it.
Yeah, for
And then it
sure.
helps both of you. Just because it's not a rip off doesn't mean you didn't win. So I
Random
think
side note of what I thought was a ripoff of Washington. What has happened this year with Jahan Dotson?
I don't know. That's a great point. He's not hurt. He's playing. He's
Yeah.
listed. Yeah. Maybe we
I
pull
thought
him
that
in.
was it. I thought Philly just got the heist of the year on
Yeah,
that trade. But
I agree. I
whatever.
agree 100%. We'll see. I mean, maybe, I don't know. To me, it's more of a college thing where it's like, oh, he doesn't know the playbook yet. I'm like, he's the third receiver. Like, put him out there with some draws and some outs. Like, he doesn't need to be, Rain Man with the playbook to make a couple catches. But no, I'm
Yeah.
with
If
you. I'm very
Amari Cooper
surprised.
could do it, then
Yeah.
day one. You can
Julio
do
Jones came in, right? He was fine last year for us, or was it
it.
last year? Yeah, last year. Um, Still the last Eagle to score a touchdown in the first quarter. Julio Jones from last
That
year.
is amazing. Wow.
Wild. So that's largely, I mean, the to finish Eagle updates, I guess. Like we're 3-0 since Sirianni buzzed his hair, so we can credit to that apparently. But so let's talk Chargers too for a minute. Is it first year with Harbaugh, 4-3, winning record? Let a few get away late. Where are we 7 games into the Jim Harbaugh experience?
The Jim Harbaugh experience. I will be there in person at the Harbaugh Bowl when they play the Ravens in a couple weeks. I'm
Awesome.
super jazzed about that. Um, the Jim Harbaugh experience has been not much different than what I expected. Once I got my head around it, in the beginning, I came on the show and talked about like I don't know, man.
Oh,
Like
that's a Monday night game too. Not to cut you off, but that's
right.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Oh,
I
sorry,
know.
go on.
That
Yeah.
that was the one game I knew I had to go to, and we're making it
Mhm.
happen. So, and both teams are looking right around where I thought, which is great. So, um, yeah, like this experience is about what I thought. We aren't going to score a whole lot of points. We're not going to be all that exciting. The one thing that I find a little strange is that Herbert is just not developing. Like his greatest year was as a rookie, and he's just flatlined. So I don't get it. I know his receiving core isn't all that great, and he's made some great throws, but he's just. I'm waiting for him to take that next step, and that hopefully this year Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman and that offensive staff, ignites that out of him. But yeah, Chargers are tough, man. They're not like this juggernaut team. I don't expect them to win more than one playoff game at the most. But I'm very excited. This is what I'll say. And we got a rookie. One of my buddies call him Lad McConkey Kong. He's a little guy. It reminds me like Donkey Kong. He's
Yeah.
just so tough to bring down. He's going to be something special. I think he has 4 or 5 touchdowns this year. So
Is he related to? I could quickly Google this. Is he
I'm
related
almost
to
positive no.
not New York Giants and Dream Bowl legend Phil McConkey? No,
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
all right, just checking.
No, I'm 99% sure of that. So
you mentioned like with Herbert, like the regression almost every year, like his best year being a rookie. That's
I'd say
great.
flat line. I don't
Flat
think he's
line,
getting
okay.
worse. But
Sure. I mean, I think his receiving core for the most part is worse, and I think it's very understated what Austin Eckler did for that offense, and is currently doing for the Washington offense. Maybe not as a straight up running back, but even as a receiver as well. Especially like you notice it if you have him in fantasy, but honestly, just watching the game, any given drive, it's like, all right, this is going to be the Austin Eckler drive. We're just going to run everything through this guy. How many more years of flatline do we flip the narrative of like you can sit there and say, "See, Phil, I was right all along. Herbert wasn't that great." Like, are we inching? Are we in danger of that?
I got
Are we?
I got a Herbert jersey
I
here.
know you do,
So yeah,
but
I
originally
it
you
would
were
be a
like, "I
goofy
was
one.
wrong. This guy is better than I expected." At what point does it become this guy's average like I thought he was prior to everything? Are we?
That's
Are we?
right.
Are we inching to that territory?
Thank you for bringing that up too. I got a couple of takes that are kind of boiling right now. Another one, I thought Bill Belichick would sit this year out and then retire. That was my call before the year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm going to be right on that. I think Belichick's too active. He's gonna get a job, I think, next year. But
Do you have a team in mind?
in terms of Belichick,
Yeah.
couldn't tell you. I mean, I know teams. I'm almost positive he wouldn't do. It's like the Jets.
Jets, yep.
There's just no way.
What about the Giants? I think he still has like, rose tinted glasses to his days in New York, at least that part of New York.
Sure. I don't think they're a couple guys away. So
No.
I think even
Is that what he's
Belichick-
looking for, you think? He's looking
I
for
think
that.
so. I think so. I think he'd do like a Brady route where it's like, okay, I have like a 3 or 4 year window here where I could really do something great. But I forgot where we're going with that. So I called before the draft that Herbert would be a little worse option than Tua. I thought both were good quarterbacks. So in that case, I was wrong no matter what happens because unfortunately, and it's only made matters worse that he's not interested in the Guardian cap. I just feel he's one hit to the head away from having to retire, which
Yeah,
is
I mean
just tragic.
Yeah, I think most people feel that way. I love the meme. I wish he came out to a press conference wearing a Cleveland Guardians baseball hat.
See,
And
that
then,
was hilarious.
yeah, see, guys, I wore the Guardian cap, so that would
Yeah,
have been
right.
hilarious to me. But I agree. You know what's funny? I watched the Dolphin game. I was watching Red Zone, and Dolphins clips came up plenty, and I saw Achane take a carry, and he gets tackled, and I noticed that he's wearing a Guardian cap. So, like, to me, he's the first running back to wear one that I'm aware of, at least a high-profile one, right? And let's be honest, the only reason you wouldn't wear one is because you think they look goofy. And fair point.
Yeah.
They are starting to look better. They're harder to notice. Like, you eventually be like, oh, that guy's wearing one. But the first last year and into the preseason of this year, it was painfully obvious. I don't know what they're doing differently because the texture is different, right? A helmet is shiny, and these are like matte, flat finish. So, like, it's pretty obvious when a guy's wearing them. In 10 years, is everybody wearing them? Maybe. Like, I honestly, like, but my thing is, I don't care if that happens. Like, if that truly helps people, and honestly, the studies are still out there on how much it's actually helping. But the argument to that is if it helps 10%, is it worth it? A lot of people are going to say yes, and I'm fine with that.
I mean, I don't feel like they would if it had no impact. I'm sure it has some help, but yeah,
What's
as long as
wild
they
with
make
that,
it not
too-
look too goofy. That's my
Yeah.
only complaint. If it just looks obnoxious, otherwise.
I mean, this is only the second model of a Guardian cap, so they're going to continue to do what they can with them. But what's ironic is where they help the most is shots to the back of the head, and that is Tua's problem. That guy does not know how to fall. The back of his head smacks off the ground too much. Like maybe it's me being like a pro wrestling fan, but like no matter how you get slammed to the ground, there's a way to get slammed to the ground, and he does not know what that is.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes it's not the hit he takes, it's the way he falls after the hit he takes. That's like most of those to me has been that point.
Except for this last one where he was running for the first down in a
Yeah.
game they were down by 20 to Buffalo.
Yeah, this one was strange. This one,
And
to Damar Hamlin of all people.
Of all people. And he, like a battering ram, just shoves his head in. And to me, I was like, that was silly on multiple fronts. Like
Yeah.
there's room to run away from him. What are you
Yeah.
doing running into him? But I don't know.
Yeah, he thought he was like Mike Allstott for a second. It's like
Right.
you've never trucked over anyone since like Pee Wee maybe. So like, yeah, other than this most recent one, that's been his major problem. So, I agree. I think it'll be really hard. Hopefully, this isn't an issue and he doesn't get another concussion and he just plays his career for what his career is. But it'd be really hard for him to talk his way back in after another one for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm all for like don't tell people what to do. Like he does get and like he has the right opinion about it. He's like, hey, like I know the risk because a lot of these guys and like people mention that like concussion research is like a fairly new thing. Like we didn't have all this in our face growing up, right? I don't think anybody thought getting hit in the head was a good thing back then. We didn't know the science on how bad it was, but nobody thought it was good. So I think that's a
Right.
weird thing to hide behind by some of these guys in these lawsuits. Like boxing, UFC, nobody thinks getting hit in the head's a good thing, right? But they understand the risk for the reward of the money and the fame and whatever. And like, I only say that because that's how he made it sound. So like, if he is gonna just say like, "Hey, I understand that I'm going," he at least has the right attitude about it.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of player safety, because it's on my mind, and I air quote it because how much of this is player safety or just trying to avoid lawsuits?
Right.
I thought I would like the kickoff a little more. It's fine, but I do feel like it needs some adjustments.
Doesn't like I saw it in the XFL, UFL, whatever you want to call it, whatever alphabet soup league you want to call it. It's fine. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me at all. It kind of helps. Like we've already had a return off of it. You have big hits, but they're normal big hits. They're not just like because a guy was running faster. And like
Mhm.
again, if the data's there that it helps, keep doing it. I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah,
And now the thing is you'll get a
it's
whole
not as
generation of people that are going to come up with this kickoff and it's going to be that
Mhm.
smoother. It is important to remember this is only the second year with it. So,
I think.
or is
Is
this
it the
the first
first
year?
year? Am
It's
I
the first
tripping?
year, yeah. So,
Okay.
I think it's only going to get smoother because people are going to do this. You're going to do this in college eventually. You're going to do this in high school eventually. I do think that's going to be something like
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I thought it had the potential of adding new wrinkles, like maybe you run like double lateral or stuff like that. And then for a kicker, I think I saw it this week where a kicker tried to bounce it right off the 20 and then
Hmm.
have it roll fast through the end zone. So and
Mm,
you have to return it.
sure.
So, there's ways to make this even more interesting than a,
Yeah.
typical kickoff. But and like you said, I guess it's early, but yeah, I just haven't, it just feels like before, almost everything's a touchback, and then any return, it's like it's just I don't know, doesn't feel very interesting to me.
I
But
think the longer we do it, kickers will find out fun things to do, the reverse, the lateral, all that stuff. I think we got to give it more time. I'm totally fine with the way it is now, but I think if you're expecting more from it, more could come for sure.
for
So you
sure.
mentioned you got a Charger game in your future. We'll do a quick lightning round about college football before we get out of here. Is there any San Diego State game trips in your future this year?
Not positive. We had our starting quarterback Danny O'Neal go down with an injury. He's kind of day to day, so the team is doing all right, not great. We do have. I brought it up to Phil last week. As of last week, he didn't have a sack, unfortunately, against Wazoo, but he was on pace to have the most sacks per game in the 21st century, more than T. Sizzle, who was second, more than any great pass rusher of their day. So really exciting future for San Diego State for sure.
Definitely. I mean, they
We
this
have
this week could be rough because they do play Boise on the blue turf this week.
oh dang,
Where
good
you
good
play,
research.
yeah, and you play Genty, that running back who, if it's not Travis Hunter, this man should win the Heisman. Already has 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns halfway through the season. That's absolutely incredible.
That guy's great. Actually, that's a great must watch because San Diego State, believe it or not Genty, but San Diego State's Marquez Cooper has the most rushing yards actively in the country.
Oh, wow.
So,
So, yeah, if
yeah,
you like running back play, that's the game for you for sure.
that is the game.
And then you
So,
got
and
Ohio
no
State, Penn
Aztecs
State.
in my future, but
No, okay. So you might have to
well,
if they
maybe.
turn it around, yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
But
You
we
know
got
what? Maybe. I'm gonna put
Ohio.
that as a maybe.
Yeah, okay, cool. Ohio State, Penn State at noon. Some people are bent out of shape that it's at noon because it is the whiteout game for Penn State. I think that looks awesome no matter what time of day it is. So I think that's definitely a tune in. Miami 8-0 could easily be like 6-2, could easily be like 5-3, but they're 8-0. They play Duke, a 6-2 Duke team. Manny Diaz revenge game possibly, right? Coming back to Miami for that. A couple other Army continuing their undefeated streak against Air Force, which Air Force is 1-6, but anytime those academies play each other, it's always a big deal. Florida, Georgia, also big Florida, Georgia game. The next couple of years, you're going to play these games in Tampa and Atlanta while the Jag Stadium gets renovated. So this is the last, the way people think of this game is going to be the last one that way in a couple of years. And then as for us, UCF plays Hank's Arizona Wildcats in our space game. We are 7-0 in space games in our history. We have lost 4 straight. So hopefully if we win one more game this year, it better be this one. So Hank, if you're listening, good luck, but not too much luck. That's kind of the highlights of college football this week. We'll probably next time go more in depth with that since we hammered home NFL this week. But Nick, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Oh man, just stay safe out there on those Halloween streets. Things can get pretty crazy out there, and what's it called? No matter who, family members or friends, no matter who they vote for in the end, that's just another person that you should just, is more than just who they voted for. So, just vote and do all that stuff. And let's get back to just, caring for each other. I know that's not sports, but there you go.
Once November 5th happens and the election's over, some of you need to go find actual personalities. So I hope you find.
Agreed.
I wish you luck in that endeavor. If that bothered you, it's because you need to do it. So hopefully we're all friends again November 5th for the people that care about that sort of thing. Like you said, not sports, but it needs to be said sometimes for sure.
Absolutely.
So happy Halloween, happy second half of World Series games, and happy Election Day. And everybody stay safe and be kind to one another, huh? We've been through enough lately, right? Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. See you next time.